Greetings and a warm welcome. Hey, hi guys. I know it has been a very long time since I have ventured into the world of YouTube. I guess it is time to pop back online and take a look at some of the things that are going on. If you'd been following my channel at all, you will have known that I had a few reasons back in 2021 why I stopped my weekly, if you like, uploads and focused more on the energy just around me and grounding myself back here in presence and at home with my family. I think for everyone globally, 2021 was a year of profound change at personal and interpersonal and global levels. I felt it very, very intensely, and I could feel something was in the ethers coming down onto the planet, if you like, and affecting the general vibrational essence that we were moving through or transmuting through. So I found it a extremely darkened time, and it felt as though we were pulling against some sort of galactic energy, a fight, a war of some type, a war for peace and light or darkness or occupation or tyranny or movement or growth. There was something around that was very negative, and it felt as though it was coming from outside of our field and down to us. So I think it had been manifesting for some time, this kind of sinewy, very strong energy or energetic field that was slowly enveloping the whole vibrational field of the earth and as us as humans. My channel seemed to be affected, and I believe it still will be anyhow, in as much that there is some sort of block on the channel so that the videos do not get out a great deal. Who or what is exactly doing it, I have no idea. It is what it is, and that's life. So we can't necessarily change some of the things that happen. We can perhaps persuade certain perspectives of them, but we can't necessarily change everything. But if we think back to 2021 and we see the progression of change that took place, and in particular a lot was about mandating our freedom. I don't know how many of you might be aware of this or not, but currently in New Zealand we have a very tempestuous energy field about most of us wanting our freedom back, and for the mandates that the government has put in place to be lifted. So the country that I live in, way down in the bottom of the world, of the planet, in the southern hemisphere, right down the bottom, not far from Antarctica, we are going through our own crisis point right now that is carried on from a build-up of toxic energy of 2021, and we are trying to transmute that energy and move back into a relative freedom. Now, some of this energy has come from the whole viral issue and the political mandates that were put in place, and then it seems to grow outward and become a bigger web whereby a lot more energy is infused into it, and it seems to span itself out and just keeps growing and growing. And I think this has happened globally for a lot of countries. They may have started off with a set specific criteria about what was wrong or what was annoying them or what was taking their freedom away, and then it just keeps on going and going and going. And this happened with the public generally, or you know, the global consciousness of citizens within their own countries around the globe during 2021. And we see it now manifesting, if you like, with one of the leaders, Putin, who is also angry at what he feels is freedom being taken from his perspective, especially of historical evidence or historical transactions that have taken place from his eyes and previous historical eyes of the Russian dictatorship, I guess you could call it. So now we find ourselves moving into this further conundrum of energies that are beset with or besieged with anger, hatred, venom, vengeance. You know, I want back, and I want my this, or I want my that. And he is also fulfilling part of that energy field. He wants his land back. He wants the righteousness of his country back. And individually, a lot of us globally, we want our freedoms back. We want what's ours back. So a lot of what is going on is a global energy field that is affecting all of us individually, collectively, consciously, and going right out and reverberating into the ethers. So maybe this is our way of fighting back some of the energy fields that were coming down onto our planet. It's almost as if it's like a cloud is stopping the rays from projecting further out, and that they're bouncing back onto us. So maybe that's some of what is happening. I think one of the most important aspects at the moment is to not be caught in a paradigm or a loop of replaying the same thing over and over, of understanding that as far back as we can recall or understand, or as far back as our history books take us, the world has continually perpetuated literally the same stories time and time and time again. And they come, they go, we experience them. Technically, we learn something from them. Then they seem to be repeated, whether it's 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100 million years. We seem to keep repeating these sequences of events that are almost mimicking previous events that happened back in time. So when these situations arise, they're telling us that we've still got learnings to go through, that we still are on the stage of progression of some sort, that we haven't necessarily learnt from the last time these things happened. So what is it we're not learning? That's what we have to go back and ask ourselves. Being in these situations like what we have seen in 2021, which has kind of pushed us collectively into the situation we are in 2022, we saw some of this happen back in 1918 when the Great War finished and ended in a global pandemic. We started this pandemic off in 2019, and now we're heading ourselves into a global war, possibly of some type. It's just a repeat of 200 years ago. There's another aspect too that can be rolled into the calculations and the understandings from our perspective, is that there is no doubt that astrologically the planets that line up create a lot of the, not imagery, but a lot of the potential energy fields that we will play out into. The planets that surround us and the positions they lie in literally can forecast for us the type of field that we will be walking into. But we can learn to adjust the situations if we are mindful of what is coming. Astrology is one of the oldest known mathematical realms on the planet. It's a very acutely informative, divinative tool for humankind. And there's someone I do follow, and her name's Joni Peterson, and I think a lot of you might follow her too. She is a Vedic astrologer. She's very, very good at picking up through her astrological knowledge of certain things or timelines or events that could happen. And she does that primarily by going back on historical events that have already occurred. So it proves time and time again that we literally are replaying scenarios. And until we get it, until we move on, until we grow, until we understand that either these events are here to teach us another lesson or another learning or another part or aspect of ourselves collectively and individually that we haven't yet grown into or we haven't understood, we will repeat and we will replay many of these same issues time and time again. I don't know for how long. How long does it take for us to learn? Why do we keep coming back here? Why do we keep reincarnating onto this planet? We're only here as individuals, as humans, because we chose to come. And we only chose to come here to be in this heaviness, if you like, of the 3D human body, to sort out a soul issue that hasn't been resolved. When we get to the point of resolution of our soul's incarnations and journeys, and when we have worked through our problems as a soul entity, we no longer come back to this heavy density. We move on to a realm of lightness. You don't need a physical body as a soul, but you come here to experience it in this earthly realm, to work through issues. So anytime we're here, as in now for instance, we are here to experience some form of learning, and learning is usually traumatic one way or another. There will be souls out there, and there'll be souls that you know. There'll be parts of your soul family. For some of you, they will be that other half of the soul of you, that twin flame energy, if you like, that don't come back. They're up there waiting for our reintroduction into the soul sphere that doesn't need to come back to earth for a body. I don't know when that will happen. Does it happen in this lifetime? Is this the last lifetime for some of us? Or do we come back again and again and again and again, hundreds, if not thousands of times in another timeline, possibly at the same time as this, or possibly in a near future, or possibly in a different timeline, as in some people recall past lives where they say they might have been someone in the 11th century or the 9th century, or even before that, or in a timeline on another planet, or as another being. All of those supposed memories or timelines or previous lives are all about the same issue, that we come back here to experience some sort of healing and ability to learn. And so more than anything, what we are doing through these critical, traumatic, exhausting times is learning. And at the same time, if we bring in these astrological movements, we know that we are moving into the Age of Aquarius. And the Age of Aquarius, by the very definition of the nature of it, is moving out of the lateral thinking of the human mind. It moves us into the concept of technology. We literally, at the juxtaposition of moving into the Age of Aquarius, we cease to be human beings. We become something more like a cyborg. We are introduced to a realm where technology overtakes the slower evolution of human biology. We merge together. It's already happened, and some people will try to deny it, but when we look back in history, we will see that we started to be automated probably in the 90s. In the 90s, automation was creeping up on us, and technology. And by the time we've got to the 2020s, that technology is fastly evolving, and most humans on the planet now are partly connected one way or another to some form of technology that is becoming absorbed in their body and their mindset and their spirituality. And that's just the beginning of where we head. So these are the changes that are coming upon us, and all change and all learning is difficult and arduous, and sometimes we will meet periods where there is intense fighting or aggression against the changes taking place. And this is partly what is happening up in the Ukraine and Russia. He, the leader of Russia, is fighting against the changes that are coming to take place. He can't take it yet, the change. He isn't ready to allow more freedoms for people. So he's holding on to grim death, his historical belief of how he feels it should all be. The sadness of that is that there is no need for war ever. There should be no war. We all know that. We plead for no war. We plead for peace, for harmony, for love. I don't know. It's not enough. It doesn't matter whether 7 billion people, I think, at one point in time all get together and send out positive energies to stop it. Well, actually, it might make a difference. But if it's just 1 or 2 people left that are so determined to cause or fight or have the power or the money to do so, then the events will unfold. And if it's not him, then it will be another and another and another and so on. It just keeps unfolding. The evolution of our growing learning and awareness, and the evolution of this human journey on this planet Earth, on our beautiful Gaia. We seriously do not understand the history of this planet. There are some who believe that the pyramids are maybe 5,000 years old and that predates modern understanding of humanity. The insanity of that is beyond recognition. I can't even understand how people fall into a perspective where they are limited by the historical awareness that they currently have, that they say that that is the truth or the reality of this planet. And that's some of the reasons why we are faltering. We are not looking, we're not listening, we're not fully connected to the awareness that we can be. We're not finding the correct answers, and maybe that is why we continually perpetuate these same cycles going over and over and over again of repetitive crashing. We seem to crash our societies time and again, and we damage them, and we end up in negativity because we just simply are infants at this knowledge business. We just simply seem to not be able to understand the vastness, the greatness, the expansion, the different dimensional reality that is actually out there that we could be open to. Hence the reason we are where we are right at the moment. So I guess with that in mind, we'll make this reading a little bit about what is coming for March, which is literally tomorrow. I think it's the last day of February here for us in New Zealand, the 28th. So tomorrow is March, and March is the change of seasons. It's the beginning of autumn for us and the beginning of spring for the Northern Hemisphere. It also has the equinox in it, March the 21st, when day and night are equal globally around the world. But with it, it brings very turbulent energies when the seasons are changing. So it brings turbulent energies both at the geographical and weather related, and that affects us as humans. So we can expect March to be quite a turbulent month. And if you listen to people like the astrologers that pull up what the patterns are playing out there for the planetary alignments, they're also telling us there's still a lot of turbulence in the air. These are unprecedented times that we are moving into, so we can expect, if nothing else, great times of shift and change and awareness and growth and expansion and learning. And through that, we sometimes go through incredibly traumatic and difficult and hard times. We'll call this one Looking into March and Beyond, and we'll see what the cards come up with and what they say. We'll look first at these Morgan Greer cards. This is globally for March. What is actually happening out there? And I guess a lot of us will be thinking of the war in Russia and Ukraine that is going on, and to send kind blessings and thoughts to those people who are affected directly at this point in time up there, that have had their lives ripped asunder, and the fear and the trauma that is surging through the Ukraine for the innocent people of a country that just wants to move ahead and progress. So, and also to the citizens of Russia who also don't want to be involved in a war. You know, there's so many people who don't want this, and the rest of the globe that doesn't want it. I don't know, does anyone want it? So these two are flipped. We have the 10 of Pentacles and the Page of Pentacles have come out, and they have reversed themselves. Reversals would generally indicate that we are going through some sort of hijack, if you like, some sort of difficulty or implication. And these are both Pentacles, so they're referring to perhaps the foundation of economics globally and money. They feel in particular as if they are falling. I would suspect that the finances and the markets do take a tumble around this timeline. The Page of Pentacles is normally a very positive card, upright, and he stands for the moral ethics of and the fibre of society, the things that create balance and direction and firmness and groundedness. He can represent things like government departments in terms of stability, right? So things like banking, the financial sector, rules that govern those things and keeps them in line and in place, and formulates new bodies of authority that keep everyone safe and keep their money and their finances safe. But when he's up this way, it's as if he's not able to progress or not able to instigate something or not able to see a way forward or create new patterns or ideas or concepts. He feels as though he is failing himself and struggling to find a way out. This card represents the dominion of families, and in particular things like grandparents and people with wisdom and wise kindness, and the protective armour of love and families in particular, and honouring the values that have been gilded over many years, and keeping each other safe and in harmony, trust and balance and support. But again, it's reversed, so it's as if it's saying they are struggling to offer this, or it is being closed off, or behind closed doors there is still this connection of family holding on tightly to try and protect what's rightfully theirs. So holding on to finances, or holding on to a family heritage or history or lineage. They're fighting for it to be maintained or to keep it one way or another. Let's see what else is going on here. This is for March globally and beyond. I'll have no set date for the end of this, because I don't know again when I will come back to do more of these. It's more of a whenever something compelling pops up, I think, at the moment. The Knight of Rods is the warrior, and he's going into war, into fight. And he is a wand card, so he is the spring season, if you like, coming into the March time, which is the beginning of Aries, which is the warrior type energy. And at the moment, I believe there have been some very difficult planetary connections between Mars and Venus, of quite a rare alignment where the two of them were exactly equal, and it sort of meant this conflagration possibility of fighting intense war. So he is a warrior, but he's also the beginnings of warrior energy, and he comes up also with great ideas, with stealth energy, with moving forward, with dexterity and quick pace of action. So something quick and fiery is in the air in terms of movement. Let's see what else is coming out here. She's on the side, so possibly she is thinking about moving in. A Queen of Swords, so a female energy coming in. She can be referring to air sign energy, which can be Gemini, Libra, Aquarius type energy. And of course Aquarius energy is just finished now as we move into the realms of Pisces, the water energy. But the Queen of Swords is known as a very intelligent, fast thinking, moving feminine energy. Quite often she can be very acute, or the master of speaking. So there might be something in here about words or communication or talking, and it might be quite severe because she acts with swiftness, but she's known for her acrid terminologies and she doesn't beat about the bush. So she can be a lawmaker or bringing new laws into constitution. And I notice we've got 3 pages. So the pages, 3 court cards, a page, a knight and a queen, almost as if we're moving up in order. But the court cards generally represent people. So this is a contract of people or energies or dynamics that we're talking about here, and people are affecting what is happening in this month of March that are coming up. So is it leaders we're talking about who are affecting the strategies and the outcomes of where we're headed? And it quite possibly is. Who this Queen of Swords could be, I'm unsure. I mean, I know there are global female leaders around, or leaders of certain institutions that may be powerful enough to make some of these agreements or constitutions. However, it may just be the fact that she is also representing legal, written, terse documentation. And it may be that she's associated with a quickness coming around this, which may also in turn be incorporated with the financial systems or something strategically in place to do with finances as well. So there might be changes coming in the financial representation for countries in March. There might also be new laws coming in. In fact, I think Canada recently had made a whole lot of new laws around the truckers that were doing the freedom protest on the bridge. I think they've made new laws, and it was a woman who spoke about those laws, and she said things like, if you ever do this again as a trucker in Canada, your freedom to access your bank and your finances will be taken from you. Your trucks will be taken from you. You'll be put into jail. So they've made these new implementations for Canada, and that's a way of taking freedoms from us individually. So there's a lot of movement at the moment globally about this whole existential removal of freedoms at many levels. So we're not sure what's going on. What is it that came in the year of 2021 that has darkened or sullied the energy field? It certainly has. I knew it was coming. So the Seven of Swords, one of the most hated cards from my perspective personally. I find him particularly offensive. He's deceitful. He can be a liar. He can also do things in the dark of night. So he often is taking something that he thinks is his. We could be talking about a certain leader here, but technically it's not. Those things that he has on his shoulder that he is stealthily stealing back because he believes they're his. They may have been at one time, but they're not any longer. So there can be action taken at night when this card is going on, and stealth action. There can also be, when this card turns up, very major global issues around things like global hacking. Now, this could be part of new modern warfare, and I believe just the other day the Ukrainians hacked the Russian airwaves somehow, and they just repeatedly replayed over and over the Ukrainian national anthem, and it was playing all through Russia. So there will be more of this happen, and this could affect globally everyone. And interestingly, I parked it across the financial sector. So my concern here is that our finances may be globally hacked by a stealth figure, and that banks might be hacked. There's going to be some really nasty, dirty play that goes on. This is not going to be an easy war by any stretch of the imagination. War, by the very understanding of what we used to know or associate with war, has changed. Modern warfare, we're not even really aware of how rotten and dirty and infiltrating it can become. We haven't experienced it. It doesn't necessarily have to be hand-to-hand combat anymore. It can be a lot darker. It won't necessarily go there, but that Seven of Swords is a very unpleasant card to come out. Temperance, the only major arcana card, she talks about balance, the need for balance in particular. And I've seen this card come out before for a global leader in particular. It was Trump. He often had temperance turn up in his readings. I don't know if it means Trump might play a role. I see he's come back on the scene and spoken a few times. But this is about bringing balance into situations and the urgent need for that balance and some sort of harmony. So I don't know if that's suggesting that balance could come, or if it's just really implying we so desperately need to seek balance somehow. But then the card on the bottom of the deck, which I just turned up, was the Three of Swords. The Three of Swords is this terrible, well, it's a terrible image to look at anyhow, of pain, of loss, of fear, of all of the negative energies that we can associate with grief, I guess. It's a card that represents fighting, and definitely word fighting, so communication breakdown. It represents sadness, it represents a loss for someone. It could even be representing death here. So pain in the heart, and I can't begin to imagine the pain that a parent must feel when they're told that their children must stay behind to fight to save their country. I have two sons myself who are in their 20s, and if I was in a country that was told my sons would have to go to war, I literally would rather go for them and let them live. So there's great feelings globally of this terrible angst and pain and fear and loss. And often where we have anger, the thing behind anger more often than anything is pain. And so we need to somehow work out the cause of the anger to try and heal it, to allow grief to be expressed and to be let go of. And this card can help with that in terms of communication and reconciliation. And it has to be done often through the help of a leader or a mediator or someone who can construct ideas or laws. So I think we'll move those aside and we'll come to the side deck. These I interpret in a different way, and I think for most of you who have watched these in the past, you'll understand them. Please feel free to add your own ideas and thoughts too around any of the cards or messages, or if you're listening and you get a message yourself at any point, feel free to leave the comments and messages. And in fact, the more you guys comment, the more the status of the video gets moved up. Apparently that's one of the things that YouTube actually acknowledges being an important part of a video getting access to be shown. So if they came out and they landed like this, I guess that is the first card. It is the skills, and then the voyage, and then the tower, and then work. I'll just shuffle a little bit more. This is for March. Money reversed, the message reversed. Just two more perhaps. Prison and the Sage. No warrior, which is a good thing. The skills is a card of fighting. It always has been. It could literally signify a war. It's not the biggest indicator of war in terms of the side deck, so it's not the biggest aggressor. It is a war possibly more on a local scale. Those are arrows, bows and arrows, they've been released, they've come back down into the ground. So there is activity and action and moving when that happens. The work card is a timing card. It's because these things here look like the mechanisms of a clock. I have felt for some time that there was a war energy taking place, but it felt as though it was being held up, and I've talked briefly about that earlier in the video, as if we have been in a time glitch, or as if we've been offered other alternatives, or as if something else was brewing or being made or taking formation. So this timing card is playing a role in whatever way we move forward. There could be a way out of this that is not too aggressive if we're lucky. It depends which time modality we end up going in. It's like a whole bunch of parallel options at the same time, all propositioning themselves and allowing potential doors to open. Which door is it that we take? And that'll be a collective causative point at which a direction is made collectively, and it's not just one leader that's going to make this decision. It will be a collective energy force that opens the door to one of these parallel times. Now, the other thing about this card, coming back to a more practical, logical perspective, is that it can be big engines, so things like boats, trains, buses, things that ferry people around. There can be calamities or issues with them. And the voyage card is very similar in as much that it is a ship, so it often mentions things to do with boats. I notice in the last couple of days there have been a couple of boats that have gone asunder. There have been some boats on fire. There has been a boat tip up in Vietnam with tourists on it, unfortunately. So vehicles in the month of March could have problems, and big vehicles that ferry people around. There might also be information coming to light about MH370. I did know that this was coming when I looked into the predictions for 2022. I had a connection with the co-pilot on the plane. He quite firmly said there was a fire on the plane of MH370. So I think something in the hull or the hold rather caught fire, or maybe in the top part of the plane. I don't believe this physicist who has just recently come out and said he can categorically say where MH370 is due to his interpretation of the radio waves of the various people around the globe who do the short radio wave ham operating systems. He believes that he has found MH370 through the interference of those radio waves back 8 years ago. I'm not convinced that he has found the spot of MH370, but I do think there is activity around it, and I do think we will find more information. Could it be in March? Well, actually, it went missing in March. Was it 8 years ago? That could be something that pops up along there too. This can also reference the sun. It can reference radio waves coming in or solar burst energies. Maybe we have an X-class flare or some other large flares that come in around this time. Can also represent earthquakes and tsunamis because of what it is. Just the sea, the sun, energy from the sun. It can be intense heat, or it can be storms as well. Now, sometimes this refers to the northern hemisphere part of the world, and I sometimes think through areas up around the Middle East, but this could be going back across to areas like Russia and Ukraine. So when it says the voyage, and connected to it down here on this angle is the message, there could be something in here about the message has been misinterpreted, or it's upside down. We're struggling with what it is that needs to be said, or how we can understand each other. It's like our communication lines have partly broken down. The message has always also represented messy boat. This is a boat, and these are fish that have been caught on here. There's a message in a bottle in the middle of this net, and bits of seaweed on the deck of a boat. So again, we've got more reference to boating and boats, but because this is on the sea in a boat and it's messy, it also refers to the possibility of disturbances at sea. So things like earthquakes, tsunamis, the volcano exploding, which happened in Tonga, which caused a massive reverberation around the world of a sonic shock blast, but also a large tsunami. So there is a possibility of tsunami type energies or earthquakes that create movement within the sea in this month of March. We come to the money card, and it's reversed, and all we need to do is look over here at the very first cards that came in, and we know that we had the reversal of the money cards. So it's played itself out again, as if to say that money or money issues, or even things like what is under the earth. So the minerals or the oil in particular, these will be difficult to obtain, or their prices will go up, or there will be some restrictions on them. Also things gold and silver will also perhaps have some sort of issue around them as well. We come to the Tower. The Tower has often meant shaking and quaking, and sometimes in a country like Italy or up through that European field again. It can also represent severe storms, so flooding, massive flooding and storms in towns and villages where they're inundated with water and people are caught and trapped. And that's what the prison can sort of represent, this feeling of being trapped and underground or stuck or locked into something, and in part caused by perhaps some activity of the sun, which could be a large X-ray solar flare that comes down, or something that, remember too, the sun can also cause earthquakes on Earth because of the interaction that we have with our sun, which is extremely connected. So we can find that the sun causes us to feel as though we are stuck or locked in or in prison. I think a lot of us do feel tied down and locked in at the moment. We are, literally, for one reason or another. So unfortunately that feeling is still going on there. It can represent physical issues with prisons globally around the world as well. We come to the last card here, the Sage, and the Sage is about astronomy or astrology and looking up into the skies and using the calculations and the awareness of our knowledge, both past and present, to understand the movements and the direction as we head into the future. And he was the last card that came out, as if to say, look to the stars or look to your calculations to find out where we are headed for the future. So here's the wise man using intelligence about decision making and how to move out of the situation we're in and move ourselves into the future. He is also referencing here that the astrological patterns are playing a role in the very designation of where we are headed in the future. And what are those planetary alignments for the next few months? You know, how intense are they? What are they saying to us that what is going to happen? There could be something coming from up in space too, some new evidence, some new information. There may be something we see that is very new in our sky, a new asteroid, a meteorite, something that goes across the sky. This can also reference that as well. So something that we've looked at, or something that comes down from sky. So it could be satellites, it could be rockets, deployment of rockets obviously. It could be a meteorite, something that fires past us that is amazing. It could be more of the Starlink, the satellites from Elon Musk's payload of things go down. I don't know how many of you have seen any of his when he's offloaded them. We've seen them a couple of times here in New Zealand, and we saw them in January, about January the 10th, one evening about 10 p.m, and they were so low in the sky. It was a crystal clear night and it was particularly black sky, and we were outdoors, and suddenly this low slung satellite just glided past, but right behind it was another, then another, then another, and there were 65 of them or something. It was the most spooky thing to watch, the silent procession in a straight line of 60 odd satellites, as if they were soldiers or warcraft or alien craft coming in through the skies, silently taking over like an invasion. It was really, really spooky actually, but that was from my perspective. That's the second time we've seen them. Those are the cards that have sort of come out to talk about what you might see in March as we move forward. There definitely seems to be issues around the finances, around communications. We seem to have a few physical weather implications as well. I think, you know, I've said it for a long time that as we moved into the 20s, we were going to find that the decade of the 20s when we can look back historically, was going to be one of the decades that will shape humanity more than any other that we will ever record, probably. It's going to be a ride of your life until the end of the 20s, at least. And who knows by then what shape and what direction we'll all actually be heading in. There we have the thinking woman come out, and again she's next to the Queen of Swords, which is the thinking woman. So there may be just some deployment from feminine type energies around the planet, or the female perspective, or something from a leader, or some form of communication that comes in to bring either support, help, nurture, change, ideas, or restrictions, or legalities, or something. So she's come out again. She seems to be quite prominent. I actually wonder who she is. Walking away from something. I think we need some people to walk away from something. Global leaders, that's for sure. Walking away is letting go. I'm not sure what will be let go in this month of March. I feel as though much more is being held on to. The Angel of Strength is a really good one to deploy for bringing in. I feel the Ukraine needs the Angel of Strength on their doorstep at the moment for bringing in just this ability to harness power, but inner strength, and knowing that your strength is invaluable, at the same time it's of service. So because when you are strong, you don't hold the other negative emotions, you hold faith, you hold love, you hold light. That's what strength is. It's not fear or running away or anger or resentment. It's an inner strength that shines as a light. So maybe there will be a empowerment of that in the month of March globally as well. The Temple Path is a message about these are the times to understand what is being taught to you and how you can grow from the lessons that you are learning. And it is very much about a time of seeking higher knowledge and awareness and understanding, and knowing that what happens in the physical is not necessarily the only perspective of life, and that that Temple Path leads you to a door of spiritual access and energy and understanding, which technically is the higher level. So maybe this is also an area that will be activated in this month of March, whether it's for a protection or whether it's for the learning and the evolution of us. I am unsure. Just one more card from this deck, just as a sort of so that's cornucopia, which is the abundance of all prosperous and bountiful life. And again, it's reversed, a little bit like the money cards have been reversed. So even this beautiful warm light deck is still telling us, or allowing us to see, that there's this possibility of reversal of our cornucopia of life, and that we need to reverse it and turn it up the right way and experience the harmony and the bliss and the positivity and productivity and the glow in life. We probably do need to harness all of these positives here: the Angel of Strength, the Temple Path, and the Daughter Spirit. So I'll finish this reading here, and as I say, I'm not sure when I'll be back online. Look, it may be soon and it may not be, but I thank you all for joining me and for leaving your comments and for giving a thumbs up to the video. I really love to hear what your perspectives and aspects are. These are very dynamic and changing times that we're in, and there is no doubt in my mind that we are here to learn the lessons that are being taught to us at this time. And some of those are not pleasant, and some of them are very karmic in nature as well, so that we have to experience certain aspects of the self, or of the species, or of Gaia's energy, or just galactic energy, and we just have to evolve through them and give them love and light as we merge into the new paradigm and the new direction forward. So thank you again, everyone, and it's lovely to be connected again, and I wish you all the very, very best as you move into this next chapter of 2022. So yeah, just warmest wishes to you all, protection and love and light. May we all find some positive harmony field to offer out to all of the people involved in the current tenseness that is happening, not just up there but globally, for everyone at every aspect. Much love everyone. Namaste.